Hello, I'm Fidesz,
And I'm Grace.
and welcome to Coffee in CHIKAHAN by the Entrepreneurs. The Entrepreneurs is a female-led Filipino food and cultural advocacy group based here in Melbourne, Australia. And we volunteer our skills in business, design, storytelling, community building, and hospitality to promote and build representation of Filipino cuisine and culture. The purpose of Coffee in CHIKAHAN is actually our response to this pandemic, and it's really about building community through conversation to connect, engage, and uplift in the time of COVID. It's real talk with real people as we navigate together a life interrupted by this pandemic. Today we are speaking with our special guests, Monica Magsanoc and Audrey Mooney, founders of Manila Takeout, a design initiative created to support the Metro Manila restaurant industry amidst the pandemic. Welcome, ladies.
Yes, thank you so much. On this beautiful Melbourne day here, where we're actually enjoying some sunshine, we're feeling a little bit of that tropical heat as well. So thank you for also joining us on your Saturday morning or your weekend as well. But just as an icebreaker before we get into the line of questions, if we were meeting beyond just on Zoom, in your favorite restaurant or your eatery, where would that be and what would you be ordering? How about you, Monica? Want to kick it off?
Sure. I think we'd be having, brunch at Wildflower and
Oh, I love them.
Mimosas first to start the conversation, and then we can dive into their dishes
a
little bit later on.
Yeah, ratio of champagne more, right? Versus the orange
definitely.
juice.
Just a splash of orange juice.
Awesome.
How about you, Audrey?
I'll go a little different from Monica because I like to eat a lot more, though it's not obvious. So we'd probably be in Mamu, like eating a lot of steak and pasta.
Wow!
Awesome.
What's your favorite pasta dish, Audrey?
From Mamu or from like in general?
Oh, in general, what's your favorite?
I've always loved carbonara. I used to eat it like every week when I was younger. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, fabulous. Oh my God,
So
you need to give us your diet secrets. My gosh, that does not work well for us anymore.
Not at all.
It's only for special occasions.
You must be blessed with a really high metabolic rate?
Metabolism, yeah.
Yeah, metabolism. Yeah, you burn it off pretty quickly. Gosh,
that's awesome.
That would be nice to have.
Well, we hope that when travel allows, we'll be able to show you some of the sites and eateries here in Melbourne sometime as well. Fingers crossed that will come into fruition sometime in the post-COVID normal world. But, I guess for us, we really like to start these conversations to really delve deep into, how people are keeping themselves positive during this time. Me and Fidesz are actually probably 6 months into a version of lockdown here in Melbourne. And I would say that the second wave of lockdown was probably the hardest for us. Being working mums, the challenge of actually, managing the family, the home schooling and so forth. It's really been a drain on our mental health. But for you both, how are you guys keeping, abreast of what you need to spark that joy back into your lives, especially since Manila somewhat mirrors the length of time in which we've all been in lockdown? Did you want to kick it off, Monica?
Sure. I think, it's been very difficult in Manila. We haven't even had a second wave because we aren't finished with the first wave. And it's difficult because the planning here hasn't really shown an end to this pandemic. We can't really see an end to this pandemic. So it's really more about our day-to-day lives and kind of finding joy every day and doing what we can individually. I mean, if the administration isn't really going to take it into their hands, we have to kind of take an active role to try and help. At least with this initiative, Audrey and I love doing it every day. It makes us happy and it helps others. And that's what we kind of look forward to doing at night, at least when we come together after work. And so that's been good. And at least we're all together with family and we're safe and sound. So, the small things I think definitely add up. And we're just grateful for all the opportunities like this to talk with you as well, and communicate with other people and just create relationships and get by this whole social distance movement.
Yeah. Well, how far has that restrictions gone pandemic wise? Like, what are the type of restrictions that you have to follow? Like the mask wearing, obviously in public spaces, but social distancing. But are you allowed to have people outside of your households coming over, or what's it like in terms of welcoming people into your households outside of your family bubble?
It's still very discouraged. We really just stick to the core family, the main family, you know, your mom, your dad, your siblings. We don't really see cousins or uncles and aunts. It's hard to do family gatherings. I don't think anyone's really had a big family gathering in a while. But we can go to restaurants. Outdoor dining is encouraged. So that's been good. But we do have, everything closes a bit earlier now. Around 8 p.m., most restaurants shut down.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
It's been sort of, it hasn't been too strict, the lockdown, but in terms of improving the situation, that hasn't really gone anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. That's for sure. How about you, Audrey? How are you sort of keeping, you know, joy in your life?
Well, I kind of have a full-time job, so I actually go to work. But just like what Monica said, what kind of keeps me busy or sane in this time is Manila Takeout, because we actually enjoy doing the fundraising, and aside from helping out people, we make different connections, people we never thought we'd actually meet during the pandemic. And also, well, on the side, just for me, I personally like working out and everything like that, just to keep everything busy, because I think when you stay still, I think it gets to you, and you start thinking about how there's like no end, and I've heard people saying that it's very uncertain, so I think it's good to keep as busy as you can right now.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's really great to hear that you've had your ways of sort of dealing with you know, the stress of being, you know, physically apart from folks and not being around your extended family and so forth. But you've touched a lot on Manila Takeout being one of your key reasons and opportunities to keep afloat on emotionally as well as physically. How does that come to be? Like, how did Manila Takeout come to be in that regard? And what was that origin story behind it?
Well, okay. Well, Monica was in New York at that time, and I'm an investment analyst. So I cover mostly restaurants. So me and Monica talk almost every day. So I was telling her, oh, restaurants here are closing down. Our favorite restaurants are closing down. It's really sad. And Monica said that in New York, the same thing has been happening. Although in New York, people have had like fundraisers, like some of them selling shirts for or other types of merchandise to help the restaurant industry. So me and Monica thought it would be like a fun little activity to do back home.
Are you right now in New York right now, Monica?
No, I was working in New York. Yeah, I was working in New York as an art director before the pandemic. And then midway, I got to go home to my family because, you know, it's everything shut down, and it's just good to be home with everyone at this point in time. But yeah, like Audrey said, before the pandemic, we used to kind of, and before I left for New York, we used to have dinner like every weekend, and we'd love trying out new restaurants. That was our hobby together. So when everything started shutting down, you know, we built, over the years, we built relationships as well with our favorite places, etc. So Audrey really took it personally when things started shutting down. And I, like she said, the same thing was happening here, except, you know, the bodega across the street would release merchandise. The bookstores would, everywhere was kind of releasing an alternative way for the patrons to access the brands. And we wanted to be able to do the same for our favorite Manila brands.
Yeah. Tell us more about the restaurants that you've done t-shirts for. Some of them we know, others we don't. So let us, give us a sort of a rundown of who you've worked with.
Well, we've had four releases. The first few ones are actually, when we just started the initiative, they're the ones, they're personal favorites because they're the ones we have personal connections to. So they're the ones who'd actually let us work with them. So that would have been Wildflower, El Union Coffee, El Chupacabra, and Milky Way, because they're very close to our hearts. And later on, when the initiative started getting traction, other restaurants would come to us and be like, oh, can we be part? So later on, it got bigger, and we just decided to try and help as much restaurants as we could.
And that's why, is that why you have a 2-week time frame? So you are allowing sort of, you know, the support to be spread across various restaurants, obviously.
Yes, exactly. Because we didn't want to promote competition between all the restaurants. We wanted to try and help as much people. So the 2-week period actually gives the attention to those restaurants. And then the next 2 weeks, it gives another attention to those different types of restaurants. Yeah.
And how do you guys come up with which artists would collaborate with which restaurant? Do you, you know, speak to the restaurants in terms of any relationships they may have with this particular artist? I know that with Jordy and Toyo, I know that they've had
Nicole
connections with
Corson.
Nicole Corson, yeah, in the past. So how has the collaboration come about with artists and the restaurants?
So with the way that Audrey used to introduce me to new restaurants, or we like to collect and curate restaurants, working as an art director, I do love collating, curating artists as well. And curating, maybe. It's not even curating. It's mostly just reaching out to people that I admire, you know, on Instagram, such a great platform. The same way that you reached out to us. So over the years, exactly. So I have, you know, stalking people or just people that you admire. So we definitely just started by reaching out to.
Use the same terminology, Monica. It's all good.
I know. Great. Grace was telling us before we started this call. Exactly. That's what's stuck in my mind. But yes, definitely. So we pair. Initially, when we found the artists, I worked with artists that I had worked with in the past and had relationships with prior to the project. But later on, it would really just be a case of, you know, reaching out to different artists on Instagram whose aesthetic we kind of believed matched with the restaurant's brand, and who we think could best visually represent that. So we've had partners like, let's say, Toyo and Nicole, who have had a long-standing relationship prior to the initiative. So it worked perfectly, and they brought her in, and she was excited to make a t-shirt for the first time because she's usually a fine artist. But we've also had partnerships where our artist and our restaurant had no prior connection, and they met for the first time on this project. And, you know, it still resulted in amazing work just because their aesthetics matched each other and their brand values, and now they're good friends moving forward. So we're just really grateful to be a part of that and to help make that happen, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's really a great representation of how food has become a gateway to get a better understanding of all the other cultural elements that make up having Filipino background so beautiful, is the fact that by actually connecting these fine artists to these restaurants, it's actually tapping into a part of the demographics that might not have been so attuned to the fine arts world. And I think that's a fabulous way that you really have used food and restaurants as that gateway to democratize art for these people. And I think that's a really, it's just a great sort of collab that has also enlightened us as being Filipinos in the diaspora of the, you know, amount of amazing artists that exist in the Philippines that we wouldn't have been apprised of had we not known of Manila Takeout. So, you know, so thankful for you providing that window into that part of the world.
Actually, I was just going to say, Sandra Tan, who's their media manager and editor for Den Fair, actually purchased the Wildflower and Strange Mercy collaboration not so long ago.
I bought it with her as well.
It was a consolidated order, I think, through a Polyclass Cafe Carpio. But I saw the post around the Toyo and Nicole t-shirt through Cheryl Chu. She posted it up on her Instagram, and we've had some fantastic conversations via email and Instagram with Cheryl. And so through that, you know, I went to Grace and said, this is a great initiative. We should really sort of tap into it and move quickly because we only have 2 weeks to get in. So we'll talk about the special promotion later. But you both are wonderful women who are establishing your own careers. So we talked about the Manila Takeout, but can you share a bit more about your backgrounds in terms of your I guess career-wise and whatnot? It'd be great to sort of hear more about your origin story in that regard.
Audrey. I'm thinking.
Okay, well, yeah, I was a M&A analyst, so I'm more into the banking industry, so I'm not the more exciting one. Monica is more of the design. So I started off in the M&A industry, and then right now I'm in the investments industry. So basically what I do is I watch the stock market and I make the investments. So right now it's a little it's a little hard to tell with the markets and everything uncertain. So
yeah.
We share a similar sort of backstory in the sense my career started in the professional services world as well. So I was KPMG, then PwC, and then now at Coles, which is one of the, I guess the equivalent, you know, I don't know what the equivalent would be over there, but it's one of the sort of food retailers and so forth. Yeah. But it's definitely M&A deals as well as, you know, investment banking. It's a very male-dominated industry. How did you navigate that space as a young Filipina, and how do you, you know, what type of sort of insights can you give to women sort of trying to crack into that particular side of the economic sector, and what have been your ways to navigate in that space?
Actually, that's a very good point, because in both my jobs, I'm actually in the M&A one in KPMG, I was actually the only girl associate, and out of like I think 10 guys, and I think in my job right now, I'm also the only girl, also the only analyst. So it's been very interesting, but I think I've been very fortunate that I know it's not like this all the time, but I've been very fortunate that in both my jobs, the guys have treated me equally, have treated me more like a sister than anything else. So it's been very easy to work with them. But I think I've obviously I've heard horror stories in the banking industry, and I think you shouldn't back down. I don't think it's something you shouldn't shy away of something you think is going against your values or anything like that, because since it's a male dominated, sometimes they think they can take advantage of you, and I don't you should let that happen. And I think it's also important, well, for me personally, if ever I feel like someone has overstepped me or something like that, I'm very close to my colleagues, and the guys have actually helped me out, and they actually tell me they've been very supportive, and they always tell me like, oh, you shouldn't take that, you know, you're just as good as all of us and everything like that. So I think I've been very fortunate in that sense, that I've had a very healthy working environment in the finance world.
Oh, that's great to hear. That is really great to hear, because the more you see of yourself in the leadership roles in those sectors, the better it will be for the next generation of graduates as well as analysts coming through. Yeah. And hopefully that will really change, you know, what has been perceived a very macho environment of, you know, risk-taking, decision-making and so forth, that generally doesn't align up potentially to the values of who you are as an individual as well. So it's great to hear that you are in an environment that, you know, nurtures that type of, I guess, voice as well. Yeah. So,
Audrey, can I just quickly ask, I mean, talk about stalking, I looked into your background. and I see that you are a marketing lead for Manila for SoGal Foundation. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, okay. So SoGal is, wow, that's really a lot of, wow, is that on my list?
LinkedIn profile.
But Des definitely does a lot of stalking, that's for sure. But that's how we got together in the first instance. Like all this, Insta stalking has resulted in this collective of the entrepreneurs. So there's definitely some good that comes out of it.
Well, SoGal is a worldwide organization that actually supports women in funding, so more of investments in startups. And SoGal is founded by Paquette, which she's from Singapore, and she invests only in women founded startups. And so what we do here in Manila, the Manila chapter, is that we try to connect female entrepreneurs with investors either here in the Philippines or abroad. I know that if it wasn't for the pandemic, we would have brought certain female entrepreneurs to San Francisco, actually. Yeah, to San Francisco, I think, to help them find international funding. So it's really just promoting women entrepreneurship and how they're very much underrepresented, especially in this.
That's
amazing.
Right. The name that pops up in my mind when you talk about Filipino sort of startups, Filipino startups in San Francisco, the story of Melanie Perkins being, the co-founder of Canva, and the Australian connections there, and how she probably got 100 rejections of, those seed investors before she finally got someone to back her. And look at her now. And it just really goes to show that when you give that opportunity for these female entrepreneurs to have a platform to actually talk about what they believe in and what their startup is about, some great extraordinary things can happen. So I think that's really important that you're part of that chapter as well.
Amazing. Monica, tell us more about your origin story.
Okay. It's a little bit different from Audrey's, definitely, but that's why we work. We really just complement each other's strengths and weaknesses, because I'm bad with money and Audrey masters it. But Audrey can't draw either, so it works out for us. So yeah, I graduated from the UP Diliman College of Fine Arts. So I'm a fine arts graduate. And since then, I've been working as a graphic designer and art director independently and in partnership with various brands and creative agencies. So I did advertising for a while, and then I moved on to creative studios. I don't know how to explain. Maybe the brands that I've worked with in the past. As an artist, there's no set path for you. And my dad is a doctor, so he just kind of did school, work. For me, it's work. Do I go back to school? Work. Do I go back to school? So I'm still figuring out my path and my background. But the clients that I have worked with in the past, mostly lifestyle beauty, Joe Malone, Kiehl's, Guess, but I've also had really great experiences working with UNICEF and UN Women as a contractor within their organization.
Yeah. Amazing work. And tell us more about your, what was it called? The T-shirts that you initially founded with your sister years ago in response to the martial law. Tell us a bit more about that.
Perfect. So the graphic design work that I do, or the design work, I love always having, a cause behind it, my course was also visual communication. So I always think of visuals as a vessel to kind of get the message out there. And any opportunity I have to take visuals as, to do social good, that's what I love doing personally. So the t-shirts, I was still in college with my sister, and, the news had just broken that former dictator Ferdinand Marcos would be buried at the Libingan ng mga Bayani, which means cemetery of heroes. But after all the atrocities that he committed under his rule, we all couldn't believe that he was being awarded a hero's burial. So I was in college, we're young kids, everyone was taking to, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter to complain about the burial, how can that be? But I felt that, there must be a more concrete way that we can make a difference collectively as an age group, as a generation. So I created a simple t-shirt just to express my indignation towards the issue. And I was only planning to sell it to family and friends just because, we all felt the same way. But overnight and unexpectedly, it kind of went around the internet. And but all the funds that came out of the t-shirt, we donated to the families of the victims of martial law through the Rock Ed Foundation. And it's really an issue that's close to my family's heart, at least, because my grandmother was an editor who was fired by Marcos during that time. So it's really something that we were very passionate about, and just happy to make a difference in that way.
Amazing. And it wasn't no small feat either. They initially raised over 250,000 pesos, which is amazing, for $5,000 US. So that's phenomenal. And you were how old then? How old were you then?
Oh, the old days. Just kidding. It's not
but
it's not that long ago.
Yeah.
I was 20.
Yeah, that's amazing. How do you navigate that though, as a young, part of the young generation of Filipinos that are obviously quite active in their advocacy, and you are living in a sort of era where there's a lot of disinformation going around, and there's a lot of sort of threats that activism is a form of terrorism. How do you sort of use this platform to navigate through a very dark era of disinformation and being accused of being a terrorist with your views? Well,
I think right now that is an issue that's been highlighted because of the anti-terrorism bill that's been almost passed, I think, or it's somewhere there. It's an issue that has a lot of focus, and it's a lot of scare tactics, I think, just to kind of keep everyone under control. And it does feel like the stories that our grandparents would tell us about during the age of martial law. Like I was saying, my grandmother was an editor of Mr. and Mrs. Special Edition, which was a lifestyle magazine back during the martial law era. And what she would do was that it was a lifestyle magazine, so it would have, you know, the images of all the political people and famous people at that time. But what she would do is that she would sneak in political articles into this magazine so that the higher class generation, the upper class would have to read the issues to see their picture in the magazine. They'd have to buy it and they'd have to go through the issues. And that way she was able to inform them about, you know, what was really going on, like behind the curtain, etc. So I think, you know, taking that into consideration, the same stands still for this generation. You know, there are so many ways that we're blocked, but there are also so many new ways and mediums and channels that we have in this 21st century. You know, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, and like you mentioned, a lot of people are coming up with different initiatives. So I think it's really just about finding, you know, alternative ways to share your views. And I don't think that there's an answer on how we can not be labeled as a terrorist, but I think it's just to keep going and just push through and believe and trust in the whole process. And you know, it's not about us in the end. Whatever we can do to kind of make a difference is something that we should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to food. Let's talk about food.
I'm so sorry it got so heavy.
No.
I think that's the reason why we exist. It's like food, as we mentioned, is just a gateway to having these deeper conversations. And if we don't tackle those, you know, those deeper conversation pieces, then it is just such a superficial collective that we are. But food has just been that gentle easing into the social dilemmas that we all have to face. And even more so important now in the era that we all live in, whether it be here, the US, or in the Philippines. So I think it's good that we're using this to dig a little deeper in those areas. Yeah. But we'll go back to food because I know we love food.
So the question is, either can you share one unforgettable food moment in your life? Audrey.
Oh, me first. Okay. I've had a lot, but I think one that I can really remember was when I was in high school. Me and my mom, we were just in Rome actually, and you know how Rome has a lot of good Italian pizzas, but we were really hungry and we just started to eat on the we just picked like one of those side pizza places, and there was just on the floor. But I think that was like one of the best pizzas I've ever had. I don't even know what it was called, but it was a pretty good pizza. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It doesn't even look like anything's on it, but when you take a bite, it's like the best pizza because it's like so the quality of ingredients and whatever, right? So yeah, so for sure. Monica, how about you?
Oh, it's also a tricky question. I think, you know, we've all eaten in like amazing restaurants and we've had the opportunity to travel as well. But when you asked that question, the first thing that popped into my mind would be just the stalls in my college, like, because I went to UP, so we have little stalls in little villages and sari stores, technically that's what they're called. And there was one right outside my college that had, you know, Filipino like fish balls and exactly, and pancit canton and kwek and all the street food, Filipino street food. I think that would definitely be the most memorable because, you know, I had it almost not every day, but you know, whenever I would have it, I would be surrounded by friends, and just also I think it's more of the experience that kind of came with it. I think that definitely is the most memorable meal.
Well, with you mentioning that, it just sort of like brings us back to thinking about what Melbourne Food and Wine Festival would have been this year. It was we had 3 events that were planned. One of them was in the celebration of Filipino street food. And whenever that ends up being reinstated, whether it be in 2021 or 2022, hopefully travel allows you guys to visit us here in Melbourne and get a taste of, you know, our version or perspective on what Filipino street foods are and how it's been created by the community of culinarians that we have here, which have, it's just amazing that during COVID, they've really come out and brought their Filipino heritage to the fore. And I think that's what has been so successful in keeping the connections going with our barrio through our various In My Cocina segments. So hopefully if you haven't yet traveled to Melbourne, this is the culinary capital of Australia and will continue to be even post-COVID. We hope you'll get to enjoy that, what our city has to offer as well. So,
all right. I was going to also ask, in terms of the next normal. You know, there's a lot of talk about COVID normal. You know, what it will look like once we get out to the other end. Do you guys have any thoughts around what you think the next normal would look like? And is there anything you'd like to see change or remain, either in your industry, in your city, in your community, or country? Country is a big one.
Audrey.
It's always you.
I threw it to you first, like, not me first tips.
I think post-COVID, I think what would change is people would be more conscious of the relationships that they make, because I think right now we realize that we kind of miss everyone and we don't get to see a lot of people. So I think we'll put more value into that. And I do hope that that changes, because I think pre-COVID, everyone was so busy with their lives, with their careers, just trying to, like, you know, make something happen. But I think right now, with everything slowing down, we realize what's actually really important. And for me personally, I think it's really just your relationships and your family and friends. So I think that's something I think will change, and people will put more importance to that. And I think that's something I hope will change, so that we actually see what's really important.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Monica, how about you?
I think one thing that definitely will change would be the work arrangement, just because it's something that pre-COVID, I would really work from home, like as a graphic designer and art director in partnership abroad and here. But, you know, if you say you're kind of a freelancer, if you're working from home, it doesn't have a very positive connotation.
Yes,
at least, you know, a year ago, it would be like, oh, you know, she doesn't really have a job, or it's much easier than, you know, my job where I have to go to work 9 to 5. But now we're all at home, and now work is 9 to 9, or, you know, even through the night. Now there's no boundaries. So at least I'm just grateful that, you know, people are trying to experience this alternate form of work. Not in the sense, I mean, there are the challenges that come with it, but I think certain companies are realizing that, you know, I read this quote once that why wait for your life to kind of begin after work, you know, work-life balance? Why not have a work-life integration? So, you know, have it together, have your life be a part of it. And I think that's what certain companies are realizing, having their employees work from home. They're definitely more productive, but also about setting boundaries between the times that you should be working or the times that you should spend with family, so that home is still kind of a sacred place. So yeah, definitely in terms of work. And then, like Audrey said, this period has kind of just made us realize what is essential. I mean, we keep throwing that word around, especially now, you know, essential workers, essential businesses, essential food. And again, it is about relationships, I think, and it's about, you know, it's all the material things are kind of gone. A lot of experiences are gone. In the end, it's the people who you have been spending this time with. So we're just grateful for family and, you know, all the new people that we've been able to meet through this initiative. And it's so great to also learn about the things that they're doing to help this pandemic this time and the people around them. So definitely that's what we've learned so far.
Yeah, that's for sure. And what are you hoping will come out of this for Des, like the post-COVID world?
Very similar to your answers, Audrey and Monica. We, you know, for the last 6 months, we've really sort of, our lives has changed in the regard, especially at home, you know, which is normally, you know, family and whatnot. But, you know, over the six months that's just passed, we see those, you know, boundaries blurred with work, children, and family and whatever. So what I would like to see more post-COVID is, an appreciation of the abundance that we have and the essential things that we normally probably would take for granted, you know. So being present with your children, for example, with me, you know, it's always a rush. Every day is a rush, particularly during school day and whatnot. So I've really learned to take things slower and appreciating each moment as they come, but also learning when to set those boundaries at home. So when I, you know, start and finish work, but and then be present with the children and with the family. So but in terms of the industry, you know, hospitality, we know the big challenges around that, and even retail. and our cities as well. Like, the working from home will have a great impact on the footprint of the city and the amount of people that come to major events and whatever. And we're seeing that with sort of, like the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival. How will that even look like in future?
Yeah, because one of the things that Jordy mentioned to us about the way in which, people in Manila actually dine is that they dine because they're sort of like basically waiting out on the traffic. So they go to their favorite restaurants, wait for the traffic to calm down. But in that time, they're obviously eating at their favorite places and patronizing them. Where do you foresee that changing in Manila because of the fact that most people are working from home? And unless you're living in Makati, how do you sort of like patronize those restaurants that have made a name for themselves along Publishon and all those other restaurant rows?
Yeah. Because definitely in Melbourne, we're seeing a lot of, the increased acceleration of deliveries and take homes and meal kits. And we're seeing that with some of the restaurants. And we know that Jordy's doing that with his Bila O as well. But yeah, what have you guys seen?
Yeah, like what you mentioned, I think a lot of the restaurants have been trying to adapt and do deliveries so that they could reach their customers. Because I think what I've noticed when we go out sometimes, since I go out for work, is that Filipinos are more scared of the virus than, let's say, the foreigners. So the restaurants with a lot of foreigners, they're actually out and dining, but I think Filipinos are more cautious of the virus, so they prefer to stay in. And I think the way restaurants can reach them right now is mostly through deliveries.
Yeah. Are restaurants or patrons of restaurants, are they following the compliance regulations regarding social distancing and health measures and whatnot? Are they complying with that?
Well,
sorry, I was just going to say, for a patron to dine out, you want to be able to ensure that of their safety, I suppose. I actually saw a post just recently with David Ong. He went out to dinner, and he took sort of footage of the setup within the restaurant. And one of the key things he said in his post was that he felt really safe to be dining out and enjoying the meal that was presented to him, which I think is a really important element for a lot of restaurants to consider. Restaurants, any businesses that require, foot traffic in store. Yeah. So.
Well, how do you do that though? Because obviously street food and carinderia style eating is obviously a big component of the way in which Filipinos dine over there, as well as over here. Like, we loved that element of bringing Filipino heritage to the fore by actually encouraging those folks that came to our events to, use their hands to sort of really celebrate and embrace Kamayan and so forth. And it's really sort of like, I guess for us from an events management space, it's really recalibrating what is going to be possible in the post-normal world. But how have you seen, that side of our Manila food scene keep themselves abreast of, what the new challenges will be in ensuring and showing people that it's safe to dine and patronize them? Yeah. What have you seen in that sort of subset of our Filipino hospitality scene in Manila?
I think it's a little bit harder for them, but I think like what me and Monica have come across is platforms such as Grab and Food Panda. They've actually been trying to help these smaller businesses or smaller restaurants and put them on their platform and promote them, and they make them accessible and actually handle the delivery. So I think that's one way those smaller restaurants have been able to get their food to their customers.
Yeah. Well, that's, definitely. I think at-home meal kits is going to continue to be the trend beyond this post-COVID world. And I think that's a trend that we're, hoping to tap into with respect to our partnership with you ladies as it relates to the promotion of your t-shirts, and most specifically in the promotion of Toyo Eatery. We connected with Jordy over a meal of pancit palabok on a bilao. So the fact that the artwork is actually representative of that first connection that we had over Zoom or whatever version of our platform that we were using at that point, it really sort of like taps into that memory, and it also invokes that, that drive and call to action to continue to help Jordy and the Toyo team, so that the next time we get to travel back to Manila, we get to patronize them and enjoy that as well. So maybe it's a good time to sort of, you know, explore what it is, what the partnership is that we're looking to have with you.
Amazing. Monica, Audrey, you guys kick off just an announcement about the t-shirts, how they go about purchasing one, and timelines as well, because we only have a very short time, don't we?
Okay, I can take this one. Like what you were saying, in relation to the new normal, the industries, you know, they're having a lot of takeout. But aside from food, we started this whole initiative, you know, takeout as well, because we wanted to provide an alternative option to food that still allows, you know, the brand's patrons, the brand's fans to access their, you know, brand, their restaurant, and, you know, still support the staff during this difficult time. So all of our t-shirts have been a partnership. And with Toyo, we have a t-shirt designed by Nicole Cawson, who is a fine artist and printmaker from London, but she's designed a t-shirt, her very first t-shirt with us and in partnership. And the design is, like Grace was saying, of a bilao, which she's weaved blinds and she screen printed it onto the t-shirt.
Wow, that's how she did. That was her technique. Oh my God.
Because I think her most recent exhibit is prints of blinds and shutters. So what she's done is she's taken some of the blinds and she's weaved them into bilao and created a print of that for Toyo.
Yeah.
So she has
the the symbol of bilao, because I think that's really aligns with what we're trying to achieve together in this collaboration. Yeah, definitely.
So bilao is a big weaved plate, mostly for, you know, family, for sharing food. And again, that's what this whole initiative has been about: sharing food, sharing alternate ways of sharing things together, bringing relationships together. Different street food usually on bilao, but, you know, Toyo is elevating it, but still, you know, a call back to the heritage and our history with the historic plate. So she's designed 2 screen prints of the bilaos, which we have in 2 t-shirts. One is white and one is black, and both are available for pre-order on our website. Audrey will explain the ordering process.
Well, for this drop, we dropped it, I think, October, when is it? Last Sunday, which was September 27, and it's going to be weeks. So the latest you can order is on October 11. And you can order on our website, hellomanilatakeout.com for, so it's only for 2 weeks, and shipping takes a little bit longer because it's all pre-order so that we don't waste anything since it's a fundraiser. So after the 2 weeks, we produce it and we ship it after 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks. All right, perfect. And the t-shirts cost, I think when we do the conversion, it's about 25 Aussie dollars.
850 pesos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of that, 100% of that will go to the restaurants that you're supporting. So for our Australian listeners, bear in mind that there'll be some shipping associated with that. But overall, it's a great initiative, and you should also, you should all look to have a bilao on your back and really use that as a catalyst to have conversations with people. Because when people see that circularity shape, they'll actually come up to your back, probably come really close up to it and say, what is that? And as we've all said, right, you know, fashion becomes a great gateway also to talk about our Filipino heritage. And I'm excited to be able to wear it with pride on my back, and for people to tap me on my shoulder and be like, what's that? And I was like, okay, let me tell you what it is, because I not only love the symbol of bilao, but I love what it's used to plate up. And Pancit Palabok will always be a way to stay connected with Jordy and the memories of getting him on board for our first Melbourne Food and Wine Festival collaboration. And I'm so thrilled that that's the artwork that's going to be on display on the t-shirts for Toyo. And not to also forego, there are a number of other restaurants that are also part of this wave of prints. We've got Margarita Fores's Sibo, and the favorite steakhouse of yours, Audrey, Mamu, and a few others that are definitely worth checking out, and both supporting your local restaurants in Manila, but also the artists that generously donated their works to print on those.
So a special announcement, which we're excited to talk about. So every purchase made by our community here in Australia will go in the draw to win a very special virtual cooking masterclass with none other than Geordie Navarra. Thank you, Geordie, for agreeing to do this for us. We haven't locked on the date yet, but
no.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say secret shout out to May, because we know that May is the brains and also the influencer when it comes to Geordie saying yes to things. So thank you so much, May, for continuing to support us from afar. So
the idea is every order that comes through manilatakeout.com will go through the running to win this competition. So it will be capped at a limited number of participants, and each of those winners will receive a meal kit prepared by the entrepreneurs ahead of the event with Geordie. So this is the first time and only time at this point anyway for this competition, so we're really excited about that. And really, like the below artwork by Nicole, this initiative really enables us to gather and celebrate, share and come together as a community, no matter the distance. So to find out more, we'll have more details on the Entrepreneurs Instagram and Manila Takeout. You're able to order straight away. We only have until October 11. Is that a Sunday? Next Sunday?
We have a week.
Okay, 1 week. Okay, so we're going to be pushing that out.
No Filipino time. You've got to get onto it. Exactly. Yeah, so there's an incentive there.
For sure. So very excited about it, and please head to our Instagram and the manilatakeout.com for more information. All right, so that's the special announcement we had to make today for that promotion. How about you guys feel about fun lightning round to end off our conversation? You ready?
Yeah, sure.
I've got about like 15, so we'll just go through it. So fun lightning round, you guys just have to select one or the other. All right, so we'll take turns. All right, so here we go. I actually don't have any European or non-Filipino food here. Maybe I should. I've got Filipino foods. Okay, sinigang o kare-kare?
Sinigang.
Baboy, or are you doing baboy or seafood sinigang?
Baboy.
Yeah. Baboy.
Okay.
Okay. Lechon or crispy pata?
Lechon.
Both lechon. Okay. Puto bumbong or bibingka?
Bibingka.
Okay.
Yum.
Long silog or tosilog?
Tosilog.
Audrey, what'd you say?
Tosilog, yeah.
Okay. Toilet paper or tabo?
Toilet paper. Sorry.
It is. Oh my God, that should be next. I don't know anyone that will ever say tabo.
Look, I was just going by the toilet paper issue we had at the start of COVID. Okay, all right. Okay. Karaoke or TikTok?
TikTok.
You guys do TikTok.
Oh, we'll need to follow you. But Sadez is quite. Oh, you're kind of active, right?
Not anymore, actually. Not anymore.
We're using.
To follow the dancers. It's so hard. My daughter tells me I'm really slow, so I just can't.
You've given up. Yeah.
Wine or cocktail?
Cocktails.
Both.
Oh, what's your favorite, Audrey? You have a favorite cocktail?
Right now I like a gin and tonic.
Nice. Yeah. Monica, you have a favorite cocktail?
Negronis.
Ooh, nice.
You guys travel a lot, so Airbnb or hotels?
Airbnb.
I like hotels.
5-star, no doubt, Audrey, huh? Or not?
5-star.
Kamayan or fork and spoon?
That depends.
Depends. Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, it depends. Depends on what? Just who's making it? I don't know.
I think like if you're on the beach or something, it's fun to do like kamayan. But if it's
bar, yeah.
I think I'd prefer like spoon and fork. Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, this way. Library sorted by color or by subject? So
Sorry.
A home library, would that be sorted by color or by subject?
By subject.
By subject.
Yeah. That should be next as well.
Why? I was based on people's backgrounds. Every time like we've had virtual conversations, people have amazing.
I'm not. Yeah, it depends on who. Yeah, but yeah, they're usually. That's probably like yeah. That's usually for the IKEA setups and stuff like that. But for the true readers, they wouldn't do it by color.
All right, two more. Old photograph or handwritten letter?
Old photograph.
But yeah.
What did you say, Audrey? Sorry, you cut out.
Photograph.
Okay. And the last one, plants or flowers?
Flowers.
Yeah.
I know. Talking about flowers, I want to give a shout out to Tropnik Beatnet. They have a collaboration with Anthill, and this is actually made out of zero waste linens from the Peninsula Hotel. So they've actually made it into sampaguita, which is one of my favorite flowers that I love to smell every time I go back home. So whilst this is without any smell, it's a nice reminder of the beautiful florals that we have back home as well. So
for sure. Guys, we're on top of the hour. Do you have any sort of last minute, message or thought that you'd like to share with our listeners? Maybe a shout out again to purchase those t-shirts.
Monica, are you gonna?
You can shout out.
Help support your favorite restaurants and buy our merchandise at HelloManilaTakeout.com.
It's ManilaTakeout.com.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Yeah. Also support your favorite artists at ManilaTakeout.com, who are generously giving their time and their artwork free of charge to support the staff of our favorite restaurants. And thank you to all our partners, artists and restaurants, and to the entrepreneurs for having us. This has been so much fun. And we're really glad to have come aboard and met you through this whole initiative. We're really grateful.
Yeah. We're so thankful as well. And we're so honored that the young generation, we've got so much to hold on to. If you guys are any indicators of what the young generation are capable of and willing to put their advocacy and efforts towards, I'm so thrilled that that's the future that my kids will grow up in as well. So thank you so much for showing what's possible when you put your hearts and minds towards an initiative that really matters. So on that note, on behalf of the entrepreneurs, we thank you, we wish you well, and we hope wherever you are in the world, you stay safe, you stay healthy, and you stay very hopeful. So thanks again, ladies. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Audrey. Thanks, Monica. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.